that is actually another reason why we've got to change the way we do business in Montpelier. That's what the Douglas administration has been doing all these years, kicking the problem down the road. Well, you know what? We need to get Vermonters working right now. 20,000 people out of work. And, you know, as we were talking about it before, for me, I'm running for governor because we need jobs now, but we also need to plan for our future. We need to think about our kids and our grandkids, not just mine, although I'm thinking about mine as well. You know, I want them to go out in the world, but I want them to be able to come back and have a good job and be able to enjoy the quality of life that Paul and I enjoy, that you enjoy, and raise their families here. And to do that, we need to plan ahead. So we need the infrastructure for the future. That's high-speed internet everywhere, any place without fast internet. First of all, they're not going to see your blogs.
That's right. That's right.
But
especially YouTube. Right?
Especially YouTube. It takes forever. Absolutely, and that doesn't look great. No. But no business is going to start where there's not fast internet, and no kid is ever going to move back to a place where they can't Facebook and YouTube or whatever the next generation of communication is going to be. Right. So if we don't invest now, we're giving up on those areas of the state. We can't do that for our future.
Big in the headlines right now is this Challenges for Change program, which may be, it hasn't played out yet, but it may be another example of kicking things down the road. But my understanding is that they farmed out to some consultants in Minnesota, I guess.
I like how everyone says Minnesota with the Minnesota accent. We've been trained.
Yeah, the Red Sox are playing the Twins right now. Actually.
Yeah, that's right.
In their new park.
Right.
The ideas for how to do more with less, do more with less. That's
right.
sort of the line. And
are we just doing less?
Yeah, less with less.
Yeah.
I guess there's a series of reforms, if you want to call them that are moving quickly in the legislature, and it's all of a sudden there seems to be movement to put the brakes on. That's where it feels like we are right now, and the session is. We're not at the wrapping up point, but we're in the spring.
There.
We're in the spring.
Yeah.
So what's your understanding of Challenges for Change, its inception, where we are now, where it's going?
Absolutely. Great question. So first of all, you should understand that this was a creature of the legislature. The legislature said, look, we've got this deficit, let's try to do something different. And they talked with the administration and got together, hired this Minnesota consultant to come in, supposedly to look at what we're doing and find efficiencies.
This was explicitly to avoid the kind of confrontation that happened at the end of the last session. Is that fair to say?
The idea was to try to avoid vetoes and overrides.
Right.
And the idea behind Challenges for Change isn't bad. The idea is that we need to be outcomes focused. We need to look at what are we trying to accomplish and then find the most effective and efficient way to do that. What's shocking to me is that, look, this is 8 months to the end of the governor's term, and this is the first time he's thinking about outcomes. I mean, when I first took office 12 years ago, the very first thing I did is said, okay, what are all the statutory things we're supposed to be doing? What are we actually doing? What makes sense to be doing? And I did a tour. I met with small businesses around Vermont, lawyers, bankers, everyone who used our office. I met with hairdressers and realtors, people who used our licensing divisions. I met with local officials to find out about elections and how we serve folks. I met with the League of Women Voters, and I met with everybody to say, okay, you know, what do you need from our office, and are we giving it to you? And how do you think we could be doing better? That's the first thing. That's not the thing you do right before you're retiring. So that's, you know, as governor, the first thing I'm going to do is hire mission-focused managers who are going to be asking the question, why? Why are we doing this? And I'll tell you about, this is a funny story, it's kind of sad, but a funny story. About a year and a half ago, I took over an agency of government that had been under the governor's office. It was the Public Records Agency, kind of a sleepy, behind-the-scenes, not too sexy organization, nice people, doing important work. And we applied this mission focus. You know, we asked the question why. We found a whole department, 9 people, doing work that was completely outdated, probably for 15 years. They were microfilming records.
Wow.
And if you think about it, we've had records digitally for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
And you could see in the beginning why you'd run a duplicate system because, well, for one thing, Y2K was coming.
Right.
And you wanted to make sure everything was going to survive
overlap,
and transition. But nobody ever came back and said, hey, why are we doing this? You know, that's millions of dollars of waste. Good people. Luckily, we found it early enough so they all landed in other jobs, which was important. But, you know, that's wrong. And it's happening all through state government. So before we do these arbitrary cuts, let's really do the analysis agency by agency. So the problem with challenges is the Minnesota consultant didn't consult with very many people. And what you're finding now is that pushback. What I've learned from 12 years as Secretary of State is that not all of the answers come top down from Montpelier, and the ones that do very often don't really work.
Right.
You've got to start with the people on the ground floor who are doing the work, the people who they're serving, and that's where you find the answers. And that was missing from this process.
Okay. I'm getting the word we have a couple minutes, which means we have just enough time to really get at the character question of Star Trek versus Star Wars. And the history here is Doug Racine weighed in first with preference to Star Trek. John Odom of Green Mountain Daily sort of presented that to the world as the right answer.
Oh, there you go.
And then that kind of spoiled the question. Matt Dunn saved it by expanding the question and answering Battlestar Galactica, the 2004 version.
Right.
So now it's kind of, you know, it's open season. I guess initially I want to ask, is that an inherently sort of gender biased geek internet culture
that's
question
a good question.
to begin with?
In my family,
and then you can share your
in my
response.
family, the question would be Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I actually am Harry Potter. The rest of my family's Lord of the Rings. It's just a little too violent for me. Those orcs and all that is a little too
so you
graphic.
don't mind being an outsider?
And I don't mind being an outsider. And in the Star Wars, Star Trek question, maybe it's ageist because, you know, I loved Star Trek. I was addicted to Star Trek reruns as a kid.
Okay.
And I loved the first, you know, the Star Wars of my generation.
Right.
These new
The
Star
70s
Wars
ones.
just didn't do it for me.
Sure.
Even with the better graphics, you know, and the computer graphics.
So the best of Star Trek versus the best of Star Wars, where do you come down?
I was a Trekkie as a high school kid. I really liked
We're
Star
talking
Trek.
Kirk, Spock, original
Yeah, that's
series.
right. That's right. You know that.
Okay, you can do. All right. Do you know Next Generation at all?
I know a little bit Next Generation, but it doesn't do it for me.
I'm
in the same
completely
way.
Next Generation illiterate.
You are.
Actually, so, wow, Star Trek is just
But I think
taking
you've got the wrong question. I think it's
Really?
Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter.
Wow. That's kind of a fantasy. It's not so much science
fiction, but fantasy.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you want to go to character questions, you should know that I am a science fiction buff in terms of reading.
Okay.
And I think it's because I was a philosophy major in
Yeah,
college.
there are a lot of
and
deep
so
questions that are addressed
you can
in these
take
costume dramas.
Well, what happens is if you're taking ethical questions out of our world and bringing it into
distilling them a little bit. Right.
Anyway, that has little to do with being governor.
Yeah, well, hopefully there's ethical, philosophical. Actually, the way this campaign has gone, it's been nicely focused on issues.
Yes.
And,
these are tough times for Vermonters. Yeah, tough time for Vermonters, and I'm running for governor to get us back on track.
So it's been kind of a no-nonsense campaign. So thanks for maintaining that tone. I'm getting the real. We gotta go.
Good.
It's been fun. We could keep going. Good night, everyone, and thanks so much, Deb.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
One. We are one. One is the beginning. Are you one, Herbert? I'm not Herbert. He's not Herbert. We reach. If you will state your purpose and your objectives, perhaps we can arrive at a mutual understanding. If you understand one, you know our purpose. I would prefer that you state it. We turn our backs on confusion and seek the beginning. What is your destination? Planet Eden. That planet is a myth. And we protest against being harassed, pursued, attacked, seized, and transported here against our wishes. Right, brother.
We do not recognize regulations nor the existence of hostilities. We recognize no authority save that within ourselves.
Well, whether you recognize authority or not, I am it on the ship.